You guys feel the difference just in like 5 minutes of calming down? It's amazing how much control we actually have over our internal experience of the external world, which is a good segue to introduce Beth. Beth was raised on a farm, and from the sounds of her intro, the conversations that were happening around the dinner table were very much like conversations that frequently happen around Adam. So she was exposed to open mind, open heart, open to new ideas at a very, very early age. And one of the things that we probably have all noticed is life doesn't stop the moment that you decide that you want to bring more mindfulness, more spirituality, more connection with the divine into your life. Life keeps going. And, you know, when I talk to clients who work in a stressful environment about introducing mindfulness, one of the biggest objections I get is, I just don't have time. I don't have time to be mindful. So in her introduction, Beth asked the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it taking care of our physical, temporal body, or do we need to focus energy and attention on our connection with the divine? And actually through her own journey with Lyme disease and a couple of other things that she's going to share with us, she's found that actually integrating those together and allowing them to assist in working with one another is perhaps the easiest path for us to walk. She's going to be sharing some stuff and has a lot of resources. If there's an interest afterwards, she's willing to stay around and do a much deeper dive if what you hear in the next few minutes is like, wow, I need to hear more of that. So if you would, please give a big round of applause for Beth Verrelli. Welcome, thanks so much.
So thank you everyone for coming in today. It's just a gorgeous day after some of the cloudy, overcast days we've been having. It's just wonderful to see the sun and the full moon come back. Interestingly enough, today would have been my dad's 84th birthday. He was born on February 25th, 1940, and he would have been 84 today. But he passed away at age 77, and one of the reasons why I think he passed relatively early for his generation, because my grandparents lived into their 80s, was that he took prescriptive drugs for conditions that we have learned over the years may or may not be, prescriptive drugs may not be the best for them. So he was taking statin drugs, which I warned him through articles and research papers that I shared with him that they were detrimental to the heart health and other parts of the body, and that there are so many alternative ways to work with not only cholesterol, which at this point in time we're not even sure if cholesterol, the level of cholesterol is a good indicator of heart health. It's more inflammation is becoming the known underlying mechanism by which all disease arises. So with that I just want to dedicate this in honor of my dad. I was wanting to share with everyone what I've learned over the course of my health journey, which began in my early 30s, and it came up as what they now call, what they've labeled chronic fatigue syndrome. And so at that time, it was in the early 90s, and I was in my 30s, and it started to worsen. My condition came on rather suddenly with other kinds of disturbances such as digestive and sleep disturbances and, hormone disturbances. And so I won't be sharing the details of everything that I've explored in the process, but I'm going to give you a nice overview of the holistic approach that everyone, I hope, will consider when taking into account the health of their body and their mind and their spirit. I moved to Anchorage in 1989, and with that I was quickly picking up all of the Alaska Wellness magazines that were out in front of the stores. How many here remember the Alaska Wellness magazines? Yeah. And Jackie Casednar became a really good friend of mine, and I was open to a lot of exploration at that time. It kind of preceded my health problems, so I was just curious about learning. And then that brought me to Anne and her husband, where I learned Reiki from them in the 90s. And that was the start of my metaphysical, energetic kind of journey in the Anchorage area. Jackie Casednar, I think that the Alaska Wellness magazine was an amazing resource for this community. And then she also published what was called the Alaska Yellow Plate pages. Is that the once a year publication where she would, for free, practitioners could include their name and contact information in the publication. And they, that way you were for sure going to get a great cross-section, because people could advertise if they chose, but it was free to have your business, your clientele be able to get it out to the community. Just the other day I received a call from a friend who said that her tenant had this horrible mountain biking accident. He had tried to jump his mountain bike and fell 100 feet. And he landed on both feet and he crushed a heel and broke major bones in both lower legs. And so he's having a horrible time being able to heal from one of the multiple surgeries that he's had. And after the fourth surgery that they recommended to him, he's like, I'm done with conventional medicine, and I need to look at something else. And he says, he told her, I've been looking up Reiki online, and he goes, I don't know what it is, I don't know who does it. And I said, well, and she goes, I know who will know. And she called me up and says, Reiki practitioner. And so with that, it just has reinforced for me that there's a great need, if we're wanting to move forward and using less harmful, invasive methods of bringing balance to the body, then it's critical that, and this is a mission I'm wanting to take on, it's critical that we move to a place where that information and the people who are doing this kind of work can be found readily. In conjunction with the Whole Life Festival kinds of things, we should be able to have these kinds of tools available to people who aren't running in these kinds of circles, and that they should be able to find practitioners that are well trained, credentialed, and so forth. So, Sherry, would you like to pass out? So I put together, it took me a lot of hours to put together the resources, what I consider to be some of my top, and this is a living document. I didn't even get to cover some of the major, few of the major areas of the body that I've also been working on. So, I'm going to show you. So it starts out, I look at, have you ever heard of the rule of three? I'm sure there's plenty of rules, plenty of rules that come in threes. But the rule of three that I'm referring to is the rule of air, water, food. The rule of three says that you can't go without air for greater than 3 minutes. You can't go without water for greater than 3 days, and you can't go without food for greater than 3 weeks. And so what you're looking at here on the resource pages that I'm offering up is the first, and at the same time, with the three, the air, the water, the food, they're all nourishing the physical body, which I believe, in my kind of take on the chakra system, is kind of, from an energetic standpoint, contained within the lower 3 chakras. The first, second, and third chakra are the ones that are that really tie us to the material world. And so with that in mind, I would just point out that under the first topic, food, nutrition, and natural remedies, Denise Minger put together a book called Death by Food Pyramid. And I felt like it was one of the best books out there that summarized, that she went through all the different dietary kinds of, what would you say, fads that were out at the time. It's a slightly older book, but between her and her book and the Blue Zones down below, so the second one, I've kind of put these in order of how they created kind of like a foundation for my journey. And so again, I'm not speaking from, this is one that anyone should, that any of this information may pertain to you or is of critical interest, but it's just, I'm laying out the framework of what guided my journey, and where you can glean some, we can kind of piggyback off of my efforts, and maybe this can be a starting point for where you can find information. So with that, how many have heard of the Blue Zones? And so the Blue Zones, and do any of you remember where the Blue Zones exist in the world? Can you shout out? Oh.
Okinawa?
Yeah, in Japan. Supposedly there's 5 Blue Zones that have been discovered, and there's one in Italy, Greece. I just visited the Koya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and that's another Blue Zone. And we have one Blue Zone in the United States. Does anybody know what that is?
Alaska.
Is that
the Seventh-day Adventist?
Yes, in Loma Linda. I heard Loma Linda.
Is that California?
Yeah. So being half Portuguese and half Italian, I really take a liking to, and have taken a liking to, not only the Blue Zone concept. And if you haven't heard of it before, the Blue Zone concept is where the people in these areas live the healthiest, longest lives in the world. And so the scientists have tried to break that down and make it just kind of one thing. It's the food they're eating, or it's the water they're drinking. And that is part of it, but it's also the social connections that they have in their communities. It's the religious traditions that they follow. And it goes back to what I think is we've become too compartmentalized in modern life, and that if we look back before the modern technology kind of took over the health sphere, we can find more of the information that's out there that is conducive to health. So that brings me down to the next several on the list, which is the Weston A. Price and Sarah, the Nourishing Traditions websites.
Awesome.
So you use them quite
Yep,
regularly? Weston A. Price, for those who might not be familiar, he was a dentist that was alive at the turn of the century, and he had a fascination with health. And so he, on his spare time and his free time, would travel the world, and he would study indigenous cultures or non-industrialized cultures around the world, and he would look at their teeth and look at the health of their overall bodies. And he was finding time and time again that the staple foods from around the world were the most nourishing. And these people had straight teeth, they had white teeth, they had strong bones, they were of good health overall, and it wasn't just. And so Weston A. Price, for being a dentist, was beyond, ahead of his time, in that he believed that although the health may begin in the mouth, it's a whole body experience when you are eating well, exercising, and moving through your day in a way that's conducive to and beneficial to overall health. So the next three, the website Green Med Info, nutritionfacts.org, and Mercola.com. Those are amazing resources for our day and age. In that Green Med Info, if you have a condition, or if you have a nutritional supplement or a natural substance that you're interested in finding out what can it do for me, or how can I address, like I'm constantly referencing Green Med Info because he's summarized all the research that's out there when it comes to any kinds of natural remedies. And so, for instance, my mom was diagnosed with cataracts, or glaucoma. So I was looking up ways that she could help stabilize and maybe reverse her glaucoma. And at the same time, then she was diagnosed with osteoporosis. And so I was looking up all sorts of things and how you can deal with bone health in a better way than that. And so with that in mind, there are just have you ever thought of the analogy about the elephant, in that everybody's holding a different part of the elephant? With the last component of nutrition that I would refer you to is there's orthomolecular, there's orthomolecular.org, and that is just high dose vitamins that can and do heal the body of various conditions. And there's a naturopath in town called Dr. Ellenberg, who does work with these kinds of vitamins in high doses, and that has been beneficial to my condition over time, along with a number of other approaches that I've used. And I know this is kind of a in thing lately, but how many folks have learned about intermittent fasting? Yeah, so fasting has become the new thing. So Jason Fung down here at the bottom of the first page, and Walter Longo on the top of the second page. Those are some of the, and again, these fields are changing so rapidly. It's hard to keep up with just all of them. These are just a sprinkling of who I've read and learned from, and feel that they are leaders in their field. And there's plenty of others in addition to what I have here. What's interesting is I've only recently, through a new connection I made, where it's this book called Roar, have I learned that women should not necessarily fast like men, and that women should not cold plunge like men. And so down here, there's Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Pills, and Roar, which I didn't include in this section, she just recently came out with an updated 2024 version that she's including the new science in. So that covers, so the first section related to food covered part of the rule of three. We can't go without food after 3 weeks, and food is the foundation upon which we build our spiritual practice and build our physical body. With water, I have recently connected with a health coach down in Colorado. She was a professional athlete, and Allison Gannett is her name. She was a professional athlete that was diagnosed with late-stage brain cancer in 2012. And she also had a nutrition degree from her past. And one of the first things she asked me when we were doing our initial consultation was, is your water filtered? And so here's the thing that most people, how many people drink the water out of their tap in Anchorage without filtering it?
I have well water.
And then have you had it tested?
It's been a few years.
Mm-hmm. Do you know arsenic levels?
Not recent.
Okay, well, yeah, hopefully those won't change. Radon is the one that will fluctuate with earthquakes. And radon gets into your like crawl space, or radon gets into your the water in your well. But she was the most concerned and believes that water is the driver. If you're drinking water on a regular basis that has contaminants in it, and if you're bathing in it, then that is a problem. That she had a whole entire family whose kidney function normalized on their test results when they started filtering their water. And so it's just something to keep in mind when it comes to drinking water. She was alarmed on the Environmental Working Group website, which I have noted here further along, I believe, ewg.org. They have all the water tests from all the communities across the country. And so she was looking at that when we were doing the consultation, saying that unfortunately Anchorage's water has PFAS and other things in it from the military presence that we have in the area and other kinds. We just, Alaska's based on air travel, so we just have that takes care of, that influences the quality of our water. So under that, I do have some suggested drinking filtration systems that have been vetted and are of a higher, that you can at least feel a little comfortable as looking at it as a starting point. There was, let's see, Stephanie Seneff wrote a book, and I don't know if it made it here, on glyphosate. She is an amazing woman who has multiple degrees from MIT. I mean, she's just one of those super smart people that has talent in a variety of areas. And she has both the computer skills to do data analysis and other kinds of background degrees, to where she puts together biology and the science and the data in order to come up with what has shown to be a really intuitive take on what we're facing with some of the toxins in the environment. And so with that in mind, I wanted to send around this article about glyphosate and Roundup. Glyphosate is now getting into our drinking water as well as it's in our food. And it's one of the problems that we have when it comes to it's one of the underlying aspects of a lot of people's health problems. And so with that, I was going to send this around where she's showing that her book basically highlights that. And one of the things, I mean, it would appear that we wouldn't have that so much of a concern in Alaska because we don't have a lot of agriculture. But in this case, glyphosate is getting into the rains and the cloud systems throughout the world, and that we, being at the pole, are getting more focused concentrations of these toxins. And so Alaska is kind of like at the bottom of the tub, or we're at the bottom of the where it's circling and circling. One of the kind of what may appear to be controversial is when it comes to drinking water, fluoride is the topic that comes up quite often. And I have just been excited to see that I've been following this fluoride case that was just finalized in the San Francisco court just last week. And so phase 2 of the trial was just heard. And with fluoride, it was being contested by the Fluoride Action Network and Moms Against Fluoride and a couple other nonprofits. They were bringing forth the fact that EPA has not treated fluoride as they've treated other toxins. Normally, when a toxin is identified, they make sure our drinking water levels are tens, if not hundreds of times lower than what this toxin would appear as. Well, unfortunately, fluoride is in our water at tens of times above what they believe is to be the safe level. And so what this court case has shown, and with the most recent research that they've had, it's come forward that our children are being affected by fluoride, and it's lowering their IQ by 4 to 9 IQ points. And that, if you think about it, we've been fluoridating in this country since the 1940s, and that means that we are, in effect, having multiple generations that have had their cognitive abilities impaired by being exposed to fluoride. The report of Fairbanks, so there's three cities in Alaska that have banned fluoridation, and that was Juneau did it first in 2008, I believe. Fairbanks did it second in 2011, at the beginning of 2011, and Palmer followed later that year. And so we have an amazing report that was put together by a group, a task force that spent almost, I think, about a year reviewing the science. And the areas that they struck upon were just as important then as they are now. The science has become even more strong. What's interesting is they had 4 university professors. One was in geochemistry, 2 were chemistry professors. They had a dentist, a doctor, and a microbiologist on this task force. And I can't tell you that. So when looking back on your reference page further down, at the very end is the Fairbanks Fluoride Task Force and report. And so they have it online. It's still there. You can view it, and it's I'll send around just the first few pages of it, where they give the summary of what they found. And they found that basically the fluoride was occurring naturally in Fairbanks to the degree that you wouldn't even want to. So they stopped fluoridation, both because they deemed it to be harmful at higher levels, and that secondly they had a naturally occurring level of fluoride that they wanted to maintain. They're not required by law to remove it, but that they wanted to just maintain that level and not go any higher. So there's other kinds of research that shows that fluoride is the new lead. It's the lead of our generation, in that it's now been determined it's a neurotoxin, and it's extremely harmful to the development of neurons and the maintenance of neurons. And at the same time, fluoride leads to less sleep. And the reason it being is that fluoride affects the pineal gland, and that in turn is what produces a lot of our melatonin. So the more fluoride a person accumulates, as they grow older, it has a number of detrimental effects on our physiology. I'll send this one around, and that one too. It has a number of effects on our physiology, including it stresses people who are on kidney dialysis. It's stressful on the kidneys. It's destructive to our bones, and what they're seeing more and more is the reason why osteoporosis is a problem for American women as they age is because it's affecting not only their thyroid, but their bone, and through the thyroid and through other mechanisms, it's affecting their bone health. So that is why, one of the main reasons why one would want to consider filtering their city water, because we still are adding fluoride to Anchorage's water. But if you went to Palmer, Fairbanks, or Juneau, that isn't a problem. Now, I have family that lives in Juneau, and I was really happy that they had eliminated fluoride, because I've had two great, a great grandniece and a grandnephew born in the time frame in which their mother wasn't being exposed to fluoride in the water, and that was a good thing for their health. At the same time, there's, yeah.
You want to tell us what fluoride is?
Well, fluoride had, so Sherry's asking, what is fluoride? For those who may not know, fluoride it occurs naturally. It's an element that comes from the Earth's core, and so it can be found in large quantities in drinking water around the world. But where the fluoride is coming from in the United States had been written, if you look on my list here, one of my favorite books of all times was called Fluoride Deception. It was written by Christopher Bryson, and he spent at least 5 years researching the background and the history of fluoridation. And that's where he came up with the fluoride deception, in that it goes back to the Manhattan Project. And its inception, there was an effort to minimize the danger of fluoride, and through the research that was being done on the bomb, they found that fluoride was basically a waste product that came from the process. And so Christopher spent, like I said, he went through redacted, confidential government documents that were closed for 50 years. And then in the 90s, he was finally able to access them, and that's how he wrote the book, and that's the information he brought forward. And so the Alcoa aluminum industry, as well as, so it was aluminum and fertilizer industry that they then started to use the fluoride that was a waste product from that, as nuclear power, aluminum, and fertilization. And so together they were getting rid of their waste product through the change in laws that allowed them to start adding fluoride to our water. So this is where I was talking about the pineal gland is said to be the seat of the soul, and that because it's calcium rich, it attracts for those for high school chemistry, here's the periodic table, and I'll send it around. And over here off in the corner, on the second row in, are the halogens. And fluoride is the second one down. They're making fonts so tiny these days. So it's, actually, I'm sorry.
The great font shrinking conspiracy.
The arm reduction.
So actually fluorine's the top, but it's a halogen. And so along with chlorine and bromine and others, they all have, from that same group of elements, they have the same attractive So when, for instance, with our thyroid, if you don't have high levels, if you don't have adequate levels of iodine in your diet that are then attached to the receptors within your thyroid, then you will be radioactive isotopes can attach there, as well as fluoride. And so it interferes with both the pineal gland and the thyroid function and other kinds of things. So just for fun, it's a cute little periodic table. So if you have any interest in the latest research, the fluoride court case backstory, I included links there, as well as the court case that was just the reporting. They've done an amazing job with the testimony, with the expert witnesses that the Fluoride Action Network has brought forward, which oftentimes had worked with EPA or for EPA in the past. These are well-credentialed people. And the case they lay out for the harm that pregnant moms are experiencing, both to their unborn fetus as well as their infant and toddlers that are exposed to drinking the water. Because when you think about it, a 30-pound child versus a 180-pound man, that child's going to be consuming far more fluoride per pound than a full-grown man. So this is just part of what I consider to be the things that we need to keep in mind if we want to keep our health up to speed with water we're drinking. Then fluoride is one of the things that one needs to keep in mind. And then the next topic that flows into that, because it's related to what we're faced with in the modern world, is EMFs. I want to demonstrate a couple different things. Who wants to have their cell phone tested? Who has? All right. So this is an EMF meter. It's called a Cornet. Is it on?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm in airplane mode yet. I got my passcode. Okay, I'm not in
good.
airplane.
So here, what kind of a phone is it?
iPhone.
What model?
14, I think.
So here we have an iPhone 14, which is one of the newer ones with the rear cameras and lots of powerful. So we have.
Terminal one.
Yeah, here. So with this, see if you can see it. That's interesting. So you can see how it's blinking up and down between the green and the yellow. And can you see that from there, from where you're at? So and how it does a little readout, a chart readout. So what it's showing you is that our cell phones, so it's jumping up to 10, up to 4, 3, 2, 10. So the signals that come from our cell phones are very erratic. They're not consistent, and that is one of the things that will cause harm to your cells. And it's kind of like water hammer in your pipes, in that we're having this. So at the same time, so now so you can see, like I said, it was jumping between green and yellow. I'm kind of surprised your 14 is so low. I feel like mine's higher at 8. So put it on airplane mode, and we'll see if that actually.
It's on there. Yeah.
Oh, so that's the thing. So with the new phones, this is what a EMF meter to me makes the invisible visible. So in fact, it just jumped up into the red zone.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it's, at this point in time, I don't believe the airplane mode actually, for the newer phones, I don't think the airplane mode is truly doing what they say it does.
There's secret back doors so they can still
Now, let's see what
track
happens when somebody calls that phone.
That's what I was
Yeah, you
thinking
wanna-
too, what it had.
it. Sure, yeah. One time.
She goes,
I'm number 3 on Sherry's speed dial.
puff, puff.
I'm following you right now.
You really have just a ringtone?
Exactly.
Answer.
Yes, it's ringing.
I'm sorry, I'm in an Adam presentation.
I'll get the.
That is funny.
What is it doing?
It didn't jump up any higher.
Are you still in the airplane
But
mode?
what kind of a case do you have?
It's a cheapie. I mean, it was like a $30 case from Amazon.
Right.
And it, not
Oh, I
with
should
any,
check and see what mine did.
Yeah, so send
As
it,
it's
send it
calling.
around. People can check their own.
Oh, sorry, I was calling, I was wondering if it did, if it.
please stop calling me.
So mine is
I understood that the
12, mine was
phone
12
communicates with the
something.
tower every few seconds saying, I'm here, where are you?
Yes, yes, it's constantly sending out a signal. So one of the,
Oh, it's constantly changing.
so here's 3 books. I can't recommend this book anymore. It's an amazing book. It's kind of written kind of goofy, but it's just really common sense and down to earth. So just to kind of just, with cell phones, one of the 3 things that they say for phones is keep the device, if it's on, and it's not an airplane or it's not shut off, and don't keep it on your body unless it's in airplane mode or shut off. And like we noted with his phone, even airplane mode wasn't completely, it was still in the 1 to 3 range. And so that is something that in answer to your question, generally speaking, you shouldn't use your cell phone in the car, because not only is the signal bouncing around your little metal box that you're driving in, but like you say, it's constantly sending out a signal, searching for the next tower to connect to. So one of the tricks that I've used, but I don't think it's necessarily working so much, but you would need, we could check it, is your tricks, like if you want to use it to navigate, while your phone's on, you put in the address that you're going to be navigating to, you bring up the navigation directions, and then you can put your phone back on our airplane mode, and it'll continue. The only problem with that is if you get off course, then you will, you'll need to turn your phone back on to recalibrate it. So, there's a slew of resources out there, but in reality, what do I say? There are 4 different types of EMF. So we were just dealing with one of them. That's the radio frequency that comes off your phone. Then which is also your Wi-Fi and also what your smart meters are emitting that are on your gas or electric meters. There's magnetic fields, there's electric fields, and then there's dirty electricity. The United States has electrical codes that aren't up to par with Europe, and so we have a lot more problems with dirty electricity than other countries do. So this little device that I got with my earthing mat is supposed to, would you like to plug it into that plug behind you, or is there one? Yeah. So it's a little device that you can plug in to make sure your outlets in your home are grounded properly. And so it has a code on the back, so that's good too. I think that's pretty normal.
Can you see the code on the back?
We can, yeah.
You can get those down at Lowe's or Home Depot or any of the hardware stores.
Oh, nice, okay.
All your house appraisers use them when they come by to appraise your house.
They're using them now?
They've been using it for
They have to do
years.
that code, it's that code they have to do.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Do I pass it around?
Yeah, so pass it around and show folks what it looks like, and now we know you can get a local, probably inexpensive, I assume, right? They're portable.
What's that called?
Good thing.
Oh, the A grounding tester or electrical tester. I use it all the time when I'm doing electrical work just to make sure I've had the power shut off where I'm gonna work.
Good thing to know.
Good idea.
Now, electrical fields are a funny thing, because I moved from a place, my old duplex had a natural gas stove, cook stove, and then I moved into a place that had an electric stove. So I got my meter out, wherever it's at, and I tested the stove. You would not believe how high of electrical field that stove is putting out. To where, you think about it, if a woman's pregnant, she's standing there in front of the stove, cooking, making a meal and stuff, and so the baby is getting a huge dose of that electromagnetic energy. And for me, I'm just thinking, my gut, our microbiome, if folks, the more and more we learn about our health, it's often based on the health of our gut. And so with the microbiome of the gut, I'm thinking, oh geez, I'm cooking this really nice meal for myself, but then I'm sitting here irradiating my little gut biome. It's like, oh. So you do as much as you can. And maybe I should be using the oven more than the stove. Stove does.
And microwaves aren't good for us either, right?
Absolutely not. Basically, the biggest problem I see with cell phone usage is that this is the new smoking, right? In that this is like having your cell phone turned on is like having the microwave door open and on, is how you can kind of think of it. Well, so I see a frown.
There's a lot more coming out of that microwave than this.
Yeah, we could
But yeah.
actually go to the microwave and test it too. I mean, my boyfriend, he helped remodel his daughter's house, and they installed this brand new microwave, and then I had the meter, and I said, Kurt, test the microwave. And it was off the charts. I mean, it blew the meter out of the water. It was so high, and it was a brand new one. It wasn't like it was leaking, or you just have to wonder, was it designed that way, or was there something,
And that's with the door closed.
Yeah. So the one recommendation I can have about microwaves in relation to EMFs is use it sparingly, and don't stand in front of it when, generally microwaves go straight, right, as far as that don't stand in front of it, stand to the side, move away from it. With cell phones or any of the Wi-Fi in your home, distance is your friend. And if you're, I keep my phone on, but it's in my little tech corner. And usually that's where I have my cords and other kinds of things. So I plug it in, have it on, and it's away from, I think what a lot of folks don't understand, and that's because we're taught that these are safe, is that it's irradiating. So if I don't want to microwave my food because I don't want to interfere with the purity of it, then I also don't want my phone. My boyfriend's constantly setting his phone down in the kitchen by the spices, the organic spices, and the organic food, and I'm like, you're killing the food, man. You're gonna kill it.
Spill water on it one time.
Yeah, that was.
Have you tried the streaming services on your TV and stuff? I have a box in the back part of my house, and
Right.
it's a Bluetooth box.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So,
your power box.
Well, the recommendation would be to just turn off your devices at night, and whether it's your Wi-Fi or the folks in these books, like, there's lots of recommendations that when it comes to some of the EMFs that you're working with, that you just simply shut at the power. People get to the point where they're flicking off at the power source, their power to their bedroom, because it's EMFs interfere with you most when you're sleeping, and so having a safe space.
I do it for my whole building, so I can't really shut it off.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so then shielding would be a possibility.
Just rotate so you get cooked evenly.
Sure.
I watched a video a while back, and it was scientists had hooked up somebody's phone, and the bio things that they put on the brain. And they measure it. And they had somebody just hold their phone right to their head just for like 3 minutes. And the biofeedback machine actually showed the person, it just was like infrared. Their whole brain was like bright red in just a matter of like, I think maybe a minute and a half.
Right.
So you should never go talk like this. I always put my phone on speaker, and then because I can keep it away from my head.
Right.
Because it's amazing how much you're just getting blasted.
Right.
And they said even like your TV, even if it's not even on, it's still throwing out stuff.
Right.
So you should always like unplug everything before you go to bed, and especially in your bedroom, because that blue light that comes from electronics is really harmful to the brain activity, and it makes you not go to sleep very often and then also.
Right. Exactly. Those are great suggestions and guidelines to follow. What is also interesting is I just put my TV and other kinds of my printer. There's what's so fun about the EMF meter is that, like I said, it makes the invisible visible, so that you are reminded of what is using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth in your home. And so, for instance, I'll forget to shut the printer off, and then I'll just occasionally just run around to see if there's any new locations and or sources, and I'll find that I forgot something that's plugged in, or Kurt's iPad is on. Those iPads are like perpetual. They're always on, and they send out a huge signal. If you think your cell phone sends out a large signal, the iPads are even worse. So I just wanted to mention here that the United States is unique in that its failure to protect our children and the public from EMFs. In that, as long ago as 2018, France imposed a cell phone ban on school children, in that they cannot have their phones, they cannot use them, they cannot have them on during the school day at schools. And I just wanted to read here, it says, well, Russia, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Luxembourg, Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, Israel, and China have set radio frequency exposure limits that are up to 10,000 times lower than the U.S. We aren't talking 10 times or 100 times, 10,000 times lower. So even if our cell phones are abiding by the regulations within the U.S. regulations are so watered down and so lax compared to other countries.
Do you know why that is?
Because of the cell phone industry?
No, the pharmaceuticals. If the cell phone makes you sick, then they can sell your drugs.
True.
Probably true. That,
Pharmaceuticals run the world.
So the first three, there's a movie, a documentary that's free online, and under the EMF category, the website takebackyourpower.net, that's where it'll take you to a free documentary. And it's been a few years old, but it will give you a really great understanding of the harms and dangers that may be posed by the various gadgets and electronics we're around. And a couple of the books that I just sent around are on here. Fascinating history of the history of electricity is talked about under Arthur Furstenberg's book, The Invisible Rainbow, which is a fascinating look at electricity and how it probably has been interfering with our own electrical energy field, that the human energy field that we have, the aurora, and that it has caused harm. I mean, I kind of joke, and it's not a joke, that the Amish really had it right. They stopped, according to some of the Amish tradition, and they stopped in like 1860 with the technology. And so the Amish, although they're still, subject to a lot of the electromagnetic radiation that's coming from cell phone towers and so forth, they themselves aren't exposing aren't being exposed to near-term electrons.
They've
So,
they've been organic farming since forever.
right. So in just to kind of cover, it sounded like, right. It sounded like there was a few Wim Hof practitioners in the crowd. Do you know? Yeah? Have you been doing it regularly? So,
Been doing cold showers every morning for about 5 years now,
nice.
and I practice some Wim Hof. Not so much the Wim Hofs, too much. I do some Tumo and some other stuff, but just playing around with cold exposure and,
Right.
you know.
So at the top of page 4, I cover my two top books for cold and heat therapy and the research that goes along with them. The winter swimming book is amazing. She's one of the premier researchers out of Europe. And I forgot, and I left out her little website. But she's also has a main website, if you just look up her name. And she's doing some major research, not only on not only on cold therapy, but heat therapy, because in Europe, in Scandinavian countries, they have what they call swimming clubs, where they go swimming in open water in the middle of the winter, but then they also have sauna houses right next to them, and I'm like, oh, if we could only have that here in Alaska, where you could depend on a great sauna. I mean, we have the Nordic spa, that kind of brings a little bit. How many people have gone to the Nordic spa? Heavily on this
They're
side.
booked, I tried and they were booked, it's hard to get in.
Oh, so if you haven't been to the Nordic spa out near Girdwood, or near the Alaska resort, it has not only this different sauna, versions of the sauna therapy, but they have cold plunges of different temperatures that you can alternate with. Wim Hof is an amazing person who's crazy as all get out, but he has used his body as a guinea pig. And so the Wim Hof method book, as well as the winter swimming book, are the two resources I recommend for learning all the science that's behind cold and hot therapy. And then Wim Hof also crops up a second time in that he's been known for the Wim Hof method, which includes breathing exercise that does amazing things. He taught a group of young men, and they went and they injected them. They did research injecting them with an E. coli bug that sickens everybody. Not a single person that Wim had trained got sick. And so they couldn't, because they first tested Wim and they said, and he did not get sick, and they said, well, you're an anomaly, you're a crazy man. You swam in ice cold water, and you climbed the highest mountains with no oxygen. And so when he actually took young people and trained them, and then they were able to resist this very infectious bug, then they realized that he was onto something that he can that's teachable and that is replicatable. And then finally, with the sleep and circadian rhythms, the top sleep expert out there is Matthew Walker, and he has just proven with his science in this book called Why We Sleep. The science there is just so amazing in that sleep is now known to affect every aspect of our health. And at the same time, we now know that the major reason for why we sleep and why people become psychotic or have psychotic breaks with reality when they don't get to sleep is because our brain is cleansing itself at night. And through that, we maintain our cognitive health and the neurological connections with the rest of the body. So, and I will wrap it up with the heart and mind. More and more, the science is coming out through Joe Dispenza's work where he blends or he brings together the quantum physics as well as neurophysiology and epigenetics. And so for those folks that might not be familiar with the term epigenetics, there was the theory decades ago that genetics predetermined outcomes of health. And then, just within the last 20 years, they said, oh no, genetics doesn't you may be born with certain genetics, but it's the epigenetics, whether or not that gene is turned on or turned off, that will determine whether or not you may get a particular condition that runs in the family. So that was a very exciting moment for me, because I realized that free will, in that moment, I saw that free will existed at the biological level. Because if what genes you were born with dictates what conditions you're gonna get through life, then that, from a biological level, would be a predetermined outcome. And so with that in mind, I find that the epigenetic component that Joe Dispenza brings, and the quantum field science that he brings into his meditations, is amazing. As well as the Heart Math Institute, they're out of California, and the work that they're doing is, and the science that they're working on, proving that the heart has a larger electromagnetic field than the brain, and that through the Heart Math Institute's methods of opening your heart and working with meditations that are heart-centered, you can then affect the brain and affect your overall health. And then the two last ones that I've dealt with on during my health journey was TM, Transcendental Meditation. I learned that when I was 50, and find that when meditations are working in your life, that you get synchronistic events. Synchronicity starts to play a bigger role in your day-to-day activities, and that is what is kind of like your first indication that things are working in you out for, that your meditations are having an effect. So at least that's okay. So I appreciate everyone's time and attention today.